And one statistic that I think should scare a lot of business owners or really come to their attention is 82% of businesses that fail don't fail because they're not good at sales. They fail because they run out of cash. And you don't take into account that the economy is always changing. Back in 2020, when the pandemic happened, steel prices literally tripled overnight. I had probably 30 estimates out and deposits started coming in. And if you don't take into account or do your research, even on a daily basis, I would require business owners just do a quick update on the market on a daily basis to know exactly where your material numbers are, because you can even go into ChatGPT and say, give me an industry update for XYZ, and it'll pull things up. Like we were talking about earlier, that over the last year, supplies and materials have gone up 7.2%. That doesn't seem like a big number, but businesses are only marking up their prices 3.5%. So what happens now? The owner in the company is eating those costs.
Business Money Podcast. 1, 2, 3, 4. Business Money Podcast Fearless. Business Money Podcast Fearless. Business Money Podcast.
Welcome to the Business Money Podcast, where intelligent financing meets strategic thinking. Today, I'm very excited to talk to a person that is very interested in impacting the trades in the United States of America. If you appreciate everything around you, everything from the roads to the electrical grid to everything that comes to you and serves your life and the life of your family, you're going to enjoy this podcast a lot because we have Heather Burns, which she is a fractional COO. What is a fractional COO? Well, we have Heather Burns that is going to explain to us a little bit about that. Heather, how are you today?
Andres, I am fabulous. I'm blessed. I'm busy. And I'm so humbled to be sharing this space with you today. So thank you for having me on.
That word blessed is a beautiful word because we are blessed to be here in the United States of America. Again, like I wasn't born here, but I came as fast as I could. And I realized that there is so many benefits of really working in this beautiful country. Now, Heather, I'm really interested in knowing what is a COO and fractional COO in this case, and tell us a little bit about your story. Tell us a little bit about why this is a mission. Why is this a problem that you need to solve for companies?
Yes, great question. Thank you. So a COO is a chief operating officer. It is basically the person that's inside your company that helps your operations run smoothly, helps find those profit leaks, cash that's being left on the table, making sure that everyone's doing their job, that your entire organization is running like a well-oiled machine. And I do it on the fractional side. So a lot of companies can either not afford a full-time COO, or they don't need one. So that's where I come in. I basically am like a chief operating officer for the time that your business needs it.
Fantastic. So I want to tell the audience a little bit about basically who you are and why it's so important that people understand the importance of your job and what you do. So Heather Burns is a serial entrepreneur, business strategist, and fractional COO, as she explained. So who has scaled businesses to 6 figures across real estate, cannabis, and luxury and publishing, and built her welding and fabrication company. I'm very excited to dive into that, into a 7-figure operation. Today, through Burns Consulting Group, she helps trade and construction owners uncover profit leaks, understand the numbers, strengthen the systems and teams, and build profitable companies that can scale without you depending on them for every decision. I believe in that. I believe in systems, processes, SOPs that function either if I'm there or not. So, okay, Heather, so tell us a little bit about that. How did we get to all of these history of scaling companies in the construction industry, in the welding industry? By the way, do you know how to weld?
Very little. I know how to tack, but I could run every single other machine in the shop. So, I kind of stayed in my own lane there.
Love it. Don't worry. We'll excuse you as long as the numbers, because again, this is what you focus on. So tell me a little bit about that. What was your experience with your company, by the way? Can you tell us a little bit about that story?
Yeah, absolutely. So originally my entrepreneur journey started in real estate. I grew very quickly. In the first year, I was in the top 15% of realtors. At the time, I had just gotten married. And my husband at the time was an amazing fabricator and welder, and he was kind of capped at his current job. And I said, you know what? I can sell anything. That's where my brain goes. I sold houses. I can sell anything. Let's open a welding company, literally. And he's like, what? My two famous words for him are, so hear me out. And he knew when I said that, I was going to come up with like some out of this world idea. And so we did. We started in our backyard. I was still doing real estate. He was still working a full-time job. And then he would come home and I was selling pretty much custom gates out of our backyard. And within about 3 months, we only had a carport, started getting cold. He said, I need a shop. And at that point, we made the decision that it was time for him to leave his full-time position, work on our company full-time. And then within a couple months, I quit real estate. I had a lot of great real estate and I started the company with no debt. I transferred all the cash from my real estate into that. And then, I don't know, I just hit the pavement. I was so passionate about building a name for myself and a metal empire. And I did it. So, over the next couple of years, we grew into a much larger shop. Our first shop started at 1,100 square feet, I believe. And within about 2 years, we had outgrown that. We outgrew it actually within about 6 months. But, you make do. And within 2 years, we were in a 10,000 square foot shop. And I started learning how to really cut out the middleman, in all of our operations. So we ended up buying our own plasma table. So we were able to do custom designs in-house. We built a powder coat oven inside of our shop. So we were able to cut that out. We had a paint booth. I mean, you name it, we could do it. And I don't know. I let my imagination run wild. I always think bigger. How can we get bigger? What else can we do? And I did want to get into the structural side of it, but that didn't happen, which is fine. Everything happens for a reason.
Wow, that is amazing. So I think, well, first of all, congratulations, because this is something that entrepreneurs and business owners really need to learn how to pivot, how to see, okay, how can we expand? But it's learning all of the metrics and all of the really pieces. And we talk about construction, right? Because construction can get blown out of proportion with just the purchase of a single screw or a machine that maybe actually is costing more than what the industry dictates. So you talk about cutting out the middleman. So why did you realize that you had to go through the books and say, hey, why are we paying so much for this? Why can we do this in-house? Can we get into the supply, but kind of like integrate horizontally or vertically our supply chain?
Yeah, absolutely. I realized that I was just waiting on my timelines were starting to get longer and longer because I was waiting on a third party to do the work for us, and I'm like, I don't want to do this. I started bidding bigger jobs. I started bidding commercial jobs that gave us the cash in order to go buy, the equipment necessary in order for us to start cutting the middleman out. Essentially, you cut your timelines in half, if not by more, that's number one, going to allow you to take on more jobs and then you're able to make more income. But the biggest thing that I just learned is, yes, it's great to have external resources, but when you can actually start bringing stuff in-house, number one, you're going to provide more jobs. Number two, you're going to be able to take on more work, and then you're able to actually expand your empire, essentially.
That's beautiful. I give you an example. Actually, we had a company that was in the erectors for buildings industry, right? So when you start basically looking at any of the box stores or everything around you, and you get I don't know which are the stores that you have right there in New Mexico, but we have here in Texas, HEV, we have our Buc-ee's, we have our big ones. Well, guess what? That is built on top of, first of all, cement, and you have this big erector, basically projects that have to sustain all of that, the whole infrastructure. Well, so one of our clients actually realized, hey, we're paying so much for our steel. We're paying so much for this. There was an opportunity to acquire another business that actually came in immediately into the horizontal and vertical integration of the processes. And then he was able, with that other company, to even sell to who? To competition, to actually other people that needed also that steel. But those are the opportunities. And that comes from you analyzing the numbers, analyzing the data. Am I wrong?
No, absolutely not. But you just mentioned something that's super important, your numbers. We have to understand our numbers. A lot of people think that if you want to grow and get bigger, then automatically you just go out and you buy stuff, whether it's new trucks or hire employees or, a big, beautiful office. While all that is really great external looking success, the true success is knowing that you have the numbers that can actually support that and the growth that you want. A lot of us confuse growth from scaling. Growth is wonderful because it allows you, to bring in more work, but scaling allows you to increase your profit margins, and those are two very different things that I really pride myself on helping businesses understand that because, you can be making $1 million a year and that's wonderful in revenue. However, if you're only keeping 50,000 a year, we have an issue in between the revenue and the profit. So that's where I like to really get in there. I love solving problems. I love helping business owners understand their books, understand their operations, and more importantly, understand those numbers so they can buy that equipment when they actually have the means to.
Amazing. I love that because actually that's really what it comes down to. I think that a lot of people are working in the business. They're not working on the business. So that is a difference. One word can really make a difference. Kind of like the way I say when we're evaluating the value of a business, your government contracts, your private contracts, your SOPs actually have a value. Your IP, your intellectual property, basically a business value can be diluted if you don't have good SOPs, all of the things that you actually talk about, which will go later through your website about increasing profit margins. So identify where the profit is leaking. And so it's everything that you have to do with your business and this business that you guys really expanded. So what do you think is the biggest challenge right now for any construction company or a company that is in the trades, in any of the trades, electrical, welding, call it, let's say framers? What would be that?
I fully believe that there are so many people that are great tradespeople that own businesses, but they are not operators. They're, like you said, they spend so much of their time working in their business and not on their business while they have a full crew where they can start actually delegating, all the $20 an hour jobs to, so they can actually focus on the growth, the sales, going out and really scaling their business. But a lot of people don't know how to do that. We've never been taught how to operate a business. They have refined their trade. They've refined their skill through education, through repeatedly doing it. And business is no different, but we don't know how to do that. So a lot of us get stuck in those, chasing the cash cycles on the hamster wheel. And we don't understand our numbers. I know this is like the really unsexy side of business because it's not that flashy truck, and it's not every external thing that you can see. However, I tell people the irony is everything that you think is boring and unsexy is the exact thing that's going to give you your freedom, your peace, and more importantly, more money back into the business.
Wow. Well, absolutely. Look, I mean, do you want me to tell you something? Actually, that it's about understanding that you gotta master the numbers in order for you to go do the fun things, which is and I guess when we look at a lot of the United States and why to me the trades are so important, we travel all over the country. We talk to a lot of people, entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs, people that are trying to get into a business. What is the challenge that I see mostly? Mostly people don't understand what are the phases of a business and how to build really what you call the standard operating procedures, really the system. The business should be a system. The business should not be you. The system should sustain either if you wake up in the morning or not, because you need to have the people in place. You just mentioned something. You come to me, we talk to a lot of consultants like you, actually, because this is what we do. We do a lot of these consulting. And when we look at every project dies because of the failure to foresee the challenges and what's coming ahead. When we're talking about, we actually discuss this with global strategists like Bill Walsh, like other people that are basically seeing what's going on in the world. We have a geopolitical changing environment where everything, all of our supply chain is changing. You need people like you, Heather, that come in and focus on making sure that it's tweaking the numbers. It's kind of like tightening really the nuts and bolts of the numbers so you don't have problems later on. And I was mentioning actually off camera that we were talking to, let's say, projects right here where you have a 176 door apartment complex that can get stuck if you don't have somebody like you, Heather, actually tightening the numbers. Why? It causes delays on the reporting. It causes failures, basically, and brokenness in the reporting to who? To the capital, because the capital is going to determine what is the next phase to be able to continue with the project. When you have failures in capital, when you have failures on the reporting and the numbers, the whole project can get delayed by months, if not by years. Then you get delays on capital, and it's actually going to cost you more. Because guess what? In the construction world, the capital is not a fixed number. It's an actual variable number because it's based by variable rates. So if you talk about managing your line of credit, if you talk about using your credit cards and things like that, there's strategies to do that. But if you don't have a good reporting, you don't get prime capital. Is that, am I wrong in saying that, Heather?
No, absolutely not. And you brought up a lot of great points. So number one, when it comes to like material and going over budget in jobs, that happens more times than not. And one statistic that I think should scare a lot of business owners or really come to their attention is 82% of businesses that fail don't fail because they're not good at sales. They fail because they run out of cash, and you don't take into account that the economy is always changing, and the economy in the market is going to expose who's actually owning a company and who's operating their company. And I'll tell you just a really quick story. Back in 2020, when, the pandemic happened, steel prices literally tripled overnight. And I had probably 30 estimates out and deposits started coming in. And if you don't take into account or do your research, even on a daily basis, I would require business owners just do a quick update on the market, on a daily basis to know exactly where your material numbers are, because you can even go into ChatGPT and say, give me an industry update for XYZ, and it'll pull things up, Like we were talking about earlier, that over the last year, supplies and materials have gone up 7.2. That doesn't seem like a big number, but businesses are only marking up their prices 3.5%. So what happens now? The owner in the company is eating those costs. So, if you don't have like realistic expectations, not only for your business, but for your clients that, hey, the economy's changing. And if you come back to me within 2 weeks or 2 months wanting to get this job started, I'm going to have to rebid it, but a lot of people don't like to have those uncomfortable conversations because those uncomfortable conversations could mean that they're essentially going to lose business. I would much rather lose business than have my company pay for, money that I didn't requote being made up. Like, that's just the reality of it. But we're so scared of that. And I mean, I'm sure you can agree with that.
100%. Actually, the uncomfortable conversations that I had to have with people when we're looking at expansions and acquisitions and mergers, acquisitions, turnarounds, and everything, it's hey, what's going to happen later? Like one of the reasons why we believe in American entrepreneurship and really doing business and actually reshoring and onshoring a lot of businesses here into the United States. Why? For years, I've been telling companies, look, we're going to go through this situation. We're going to look at, I'll give you an example. Like one client, all their supplies coming from China. Then later, the target moved. Then it was from Vietnam because it was basically the next place when the first administration of Trump to be able to avoid tariffs. Now, 3 weeks ago, actually, and I was talking to one of my partners earlier, I was at a meeting with basically officials of Washington and Latino leaders. And we were talking about what? We were talking about the USMCA agreement.
Mm-hmm.
In this roundtable, we were talking about how does the USMCA agreement affect really everything you're talking about in the trades? Because 50% of the wood that we used to build all of these houses here in the United States, guess where it's coming from? It's coming from Canada. Guess where the cement that we use a lot? Guess where a lot of so we have basically nearshoring through the USMCA agreement and the tariffs that are happening. We need to really look out for that. So every company, I try to understand where are they at with all of their supply chain and see how we can better their position, not even for only now, for the future. Because then next thing you're quoting with outdated numbers. Next thing, a project started with, let's say I have one that started at $25 million. Now it's at $32 million just because of the increases in everything. right? Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and something else that you brought up that I've heard you bring up a couple times was SOPs, right? People think that SOPs is just like a book, like a stack of paperwork that is a handbook and nobody reads it. It's like, no, that is your literally the Bible for your business. You know, it tells you how your business is going to run when you're not there. You want to go take a vacation. Does everybody know and own their role inside your company, or are they all depending on you? You know, are you still running around doing everyone else's job? And this goes back to, are you working in the business or on the business? But your SOPs will also help you with your KPIs, with your ROIs. Are you actually getting ROI out of all of your employees? You know, it's like people have this misconception, and that's where you and I really come in, is we educate business owners, you know, like, does your operation run smoothly? Do you have all these things in place? You know, a lot of people are like, well, I'm going to grow my business to sell it. Cool. Like, show me what your business actually looks like. And I'm sure a lot of people come to you, you know, and they have a surface level issue. And then all of a sudden you ask all the good and the right questions and you find the root of it. You're like, you don't need more clients. You need to make the jobs you currently have more profitable. So how can we start doing that?
Well, it's all about efficiencies and it's all about understanding. Look, actually, we start with a plan, and I think you probably do, Heather, because you've been there. You've been in the exit as well, right? One of the reasons why we believe in expansion strategies is because people come to me, sometimes they want to sell the business. Okay. We start doing an analysis. There is a huge disconnect sometimes in what the owner wants for the business and then what the business actually has a marketable value for. Then we say, all right, so either you can choose to do this, you can choose to sell it at this, or you can build it up to get a good exit. But you need to build this particular kind of like call it a bulletproof balance sheet. And that's actually, this is something I use a lot. And I learned this. This is a copy from my years at Chase, listening to Jamie Dimon talk about the bulletproof balance sheet. So guess what? You have to think about your business. Even if you're starting, you got to plan it like if you're an exit. Why? Because there's 5 stages of businesses. You get to the startup, that's the planning, the pitch decks, the capital, you get your product launch, all that, right? Then you get to early stage, you're still planning annual goals, maybe you're raising more capital for different things, but you're still an employee of what we call basically, you're an employee of the business. You're still at that stage of the employee of the business. When you get to the mid stage, that's when you work on the business. Why? Because then now you have C-level executives, consultants like you, people that we have the capital consultants like we are, and then we help strategize to be able to, again, you tweak the numbers, we tweak the capital, you tweak the people. You have operators, you have people that actually look at the integration, and then you build companies that are actually, they become a flywheel because they actually function with one another or serve other purposes of service. One company maybe serves government contracts because they have a different cash flow timeline. And then some of it has private contracts. I love the trades because a lot of people come to me and say, Andres, which is the most profitable businesses to buy or to acquire, or what franchises? And I said, look, I'm going to tell you basically some statistics. And actually, I would like to bring that up right now so people understand why this is so important. When we're talking about the United States gives you a code that is very friendly to business owners, right? So I'm going to show you on the screen a couple of statistics, Heather.
Mm-hmm.
So if you see the screen, you might be seeing that America's self-employment, basically all over the United States, has different pockets where it's a lot more friendly. I can tell you that Texas friendly, a lot more friendly. We have a lot of businesses that basically have a share of households with self-employed income, basically all over the United States. One of the things I mentioned, actually, I was just in Columbus, Ohio, right here in this area. But if you look at North Dakota, why is North Dakota so deep into business ownership? Because they have to rely on themselves. There's not a lot of large companies out there because it's all the way on the top of the country. So people are very self-reliant out there, right? So we look at recession risk where they happen in different places. Some places are more prone than others. So if you are in any of those states, well, you have to look at what's going on with the capital around you. One of the things that we see is that cost of colleges is rising up. So we talk to a lot of young men to try to understand why is it so costly right now for you to go to college? And what is the ROI in any college, basically tuition that you get? Where are all the American job cuts by industry? We look at everything in government, technology, and warehousing and retail. Those are where basically we see that a lot. And this is why a lot of the entry level jobs that are building the mid-career and executive positions are going away. We don't have that anymore. So Gen Z is becoming really the tool belt generation. That's why we need to protect the trades, and we need people like you, Heather, to be able to consult companies to make sure that you can protect the integrity financially of the trade business. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And infrastructure is never going away. Like, we both know that, AI is never going to be able to build the skyscrapers and come in and tear down walls and, rewire electrical. I don't care what any media outlet is trying to tell you that AI is going to take away jobs. Trades are never going away. Plus, it's also a very handy skill to have. I love the trades. One of the things that I love most about the trades and that I fell in love with the welding company was because I got to see something come in as raw steel, and then I got it and I got to watch it exit the building as this beautiful masterpiece, and people start businesses in trades because they're great at their craft, but they need someone like you and I to help them understand the business side of it so then they can actually become the operator of their business. However, becoming recession proof, that's a different story because now you really have to understand your numbers. I keep saying that. I'm like, do you hear the key word? Understanding your numbers. When you understand your numbers and you understand that there's going to be ebbs and flows in the economy, however, the work is never going to go away. But if we come across a hiccup, how can we pivot? Do our numbers support that? Are we okay if we go, a certain amount of time without any type of income, large government contracts? We all know that those can be anywhere from a net 30 to a net 90. Do you have the funds to pay your crew to keep running your business when you're picking up those contracts? Because everyone's like, I want to get into government procurement. And I'm like, can your business actually sustain it? Or people are like, I want more clients. Cool. If your client base doubled tomorrow, can your business sustain it, without actually affecting the integrity of the product that you put out? So that's, that goes right along with being recession proof. Absolutely, a business can be recession proof. If you know your numbers, if you are actually operating your business the way that you should be, and you're not running it like the foreman of your own company.
Well, very good analogy, not being the foreman of your own company. I mean, this is actually what we find a lot of people that work really so hard. I think that one of the things that you're going to find, Heather, is that in the trades, in the construction trades, most of the people that I met are really hardworking men and women that are not afraid to hammer, get dirty, and they keep, and this is actually something we discuss everywhere we go and we talk to, even of the cities. So we do presentations with the cities about what is really around you. So everything around you is built and maintained by small to mid-sized businesses and franchises that are on the light industrial, in this case, construction, technology, professional services, medical, transportation, food and beverage. So if you love to go to your McDonald's or you love your Five Guys burgers or you love all your Culver's, well, guess what? Somebody had to come and build that for you so you can enjoy it. So we have to be so grateful for every man and woman that is actually in the trades. And of course, the USA and private government spending sectors need all of these goods and services provided by you if you have a good business model and you can sustain the numbers. Because yes, when we're talking about expansions, the first question that we will say is, okay, we're going to do basically what we call basically a capital assessment. Where are we with the numbers? How reliable are the numbers? How reliable, actually? And then, are they actually numbers that we can do sustainability for growth? I want to get into government contracts. Perfect. All right. So guess what? We need a cushion. It's the same way that I mentioned about this clients that are basically developing 170 something doors. And we look at, okay, the project needs to have a cushion. Because we know that there are variables that we need to foresee. It's about foreseeing the problems. So this is what they need you, Heather. Heather, I want to go back to your website, if you don't mind, so we can guide the audience about what you do. And I hope that you walk us a little bit about what can people expect to having a conversation with you, or how you should prepare to talk to Heather about all of these things.
Well, first and foremost, just expect the hard questions to be asked. I don't ask the comfortable conversations. I'm very black and white. People know exactly where I stand from the minute that they talk to me. Even from first contact, I'm like, I may not be for you, and if I'm not, I will tell you. I will be very blunt, because I have come across, and I'm sure you know this, and this is probably going to be a very unpopular opinion, but some people are just not meant to be business owners. So I start asking the uncomfortable conversations. Why'd you get into this business? Are you open to coaching? What's your end goal for the company? What we're thinking years ahead. Like, I'm not here just for a one and done, to collect a paycheck. My entire goal is to help you create a scalable operation that actually creates profits. To give you your time, your freedom, your peace, and your money back. So the first and foremost, I always set the expectation that I'm going to ask you the uncomfortable conversations, because being uncomfortable is exactly where growth and expansion happen. And you know that. And a lot of people like to lean on their excuses and surface level issues instead of addressing, the real underlying issues that are in their business. And so that's where I pride myself on. You can ask some of my clients, they're like, I didn't like you at the time, but I knew you meant well. You made me really uncomfortable because you were showing me things that I refused to look at. But after we got over that hump and that barrier, it was kind of smooth sailing after that, because they understood their business. And second, we talked about this yesterday, was don't do your job for you. I will come in. I'm going to hand you the tools. I'll hand you the blueprint. I will stand on the job site with you, but you got to build the house yourself. I'm not going to catch the fish for you. I'm going to teach you how to fish. I'm going to teach you how to be the operator in your own company. Because I have some people that are like, oh, wait, you're not going to be my admin. And I'm like, no, I'll help you get to the point where you can hire one and the qualities that you need to look for. But no, I'm not going to answer your phones for you.
Well, Heather, look, setting the right expectations from the beginning is the same thing that we do. And yes, I think that a lot of people are desperate. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I have great respect for anybody that embarks into entrepreneurship, but a lot of people stay still as business owners, but really work. Their boss is their business. That's what I feel that it is. Like, you start as an employee, then you start as a self-employed, but you're still self-employed. So you're still basically, in this case, once you become a business owner, once you actually have a business that is a machinery functioning with the people, SOPs, standards, operating manuals for everybody that actually moves all the levers, and you have all your capital, everything aligned and everything, then you get all that wealth and you become an investor. This is actually a quadrant. By the way, shout out to Robert Kiyosaki for his excellent book, The Cash Flow Quadrant. I recommend you read it, Heather, if you haven't. But it's actually a lot of that. Once you understand why it's so painful, because the biggest attack on any business owner right now is going to be the news, is going to be your mindset, and they're going to try to victimize you. You cannot victimize yourself. You take ownership of the business. You invest in the right tools. You invest in the right people. You bring people like Heather to basically help you with really the weaknesses of the business. It's doing a SWOT analysis on the business, right? Strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threats, and get people around you. So Heather, please tell us a little bit about where can people find you again, besides the website, right? And tell us the website again, your phone numbers, your emails, if you want people to follow you also on social media.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to follow up with something you just said. It's really important, especially when everything is so volatile around us and there's so much noise. Something that I really focus on with my clients is taking them out of reacting to something and learning how to respond to it, and that is taking radical responsibility, because, something happens and we react to it right away. And later on down the road, it really ends up hurting our business. So, we work on, can we pause? Can we respond? How can we pivot and really take back the power? Because once you have more power in your business, or all the power in your business, then your business will start making more money, but when you start leaking your power and you react to things, then that's very detrimental to a business. So we really focus on taking business owners from being the foreman in their business and turning them into the leader and the CEO that they are truly meant to be. And I know that's possible for so many businesses out there. You just need the right leadership, the right guidance. And I know that comes with a lot of vulnerability because nobody wants to admit they don't know how to operate a business. But again, we were never taught that. So I always come into a place, no shame, no judgment. And, I'm very unbiased. I'm there right exactly where you're at. And I pick up right there. I don't care what happened yesterday. I don't care what happened 2 weeks ago. I don't care what happened 3 months ago. I care where we're at right now and how we're going to move forward. And a lot of my clients appreciate that because I don't judge them, no judgment here. I've been to the top, I've been to the bottom a few times. And so I understand the game. But yeah, my website is burnscgnm.com. I am on all social medias at the only Heather B. And I would love to connect with anybody. I would love to connect with everybody. I would love to have conversations, even if it doesn't turn into anything. I fully believe that we're all here to help each other in some capacity. And if I don't have the resources for you, I will absolutely point you in the direction that can help you.
Awesome, Heather. Thank you so much. I really appreciate what you do because this is really necessary, especially because of, my background and actually the organizations that I lead with the Latino Franchise Council and the Cámara de Empresarios Latinos, CELH International. Actually, we're going to Mexico next week. So a lot of them, basically the people that we talk to, we speak in Spanish. A lot of them are in the construction industry. A lot of them are good people trying to work hard, but they're not working smart or organized. And they fail to look at all the fiscal, financial, operating, legal part of the sustaining of the business. I always mention, actually, another director that we were talking about lost with one word in one contract, lost hundreds of thousands of dollars into one contract just because it wasn't right. And then you look at basically, this is the challenges. So when I talk to a lot of the people in the construction industry, it is one of the riskiest industries, not because it's not necessary, but it's because it's not being organized. So get in contact with Heather. Look at the numbers, look at basically what you need to fix and how you can actually make your business better. I've seen this because actually we discussed this with a lot of business owners. You want to exit a business? You can have a great exit. You can build a business. You can have a great exit. You can choose. I always call it, pick your poison. Do you want to expand your business and you only want to do it through, let's say, a sale or maybe a private equity company? If that's what you want to do, everybody praises a lot of that. I believe there's other ways to expand a business. I believe there's franchising. You can give that business model that functions properly. Because guess what? If you don't have a Heather that actually comes and fix the numbers and increase the profit margins, optimize operations, builds accountability, and removes the owner bottleneck, you're not going to be able to have what is called an FDD, a franchise disclosure document that is actually a proven financial model that you can give to someone because there are legalities to this contract and says, hey, look, you're going to make this much money. This is the average of all our franchisees. And right now, everywhere you go, you're going to see either a retail business, warehousing business, a lot of businesses that are taken care of by the same people that Heather Burns actually takes care of. So we want to make sure that you actually understand that in the realm of everything around you. So Heather, thank you so much. I really appreciate all of these insights and everything. We'll love to have you again, of course, in another time. And and we'll love to see you, of course, in the next podcast.
Andres, thank you.
This episode is brought to you by Evermar Capital, Business Capital, and Consulting. Whether you're buying a business, expanding through franchising, or looking for growth capital, Evermar Capital helps entrepreneurs and business owners access the funding, strategy, and connections they need to succeed. Build smarter. Scale faster. Visit Evermar Capital today. Connect with our team and turn business opportunities into results.